Easy games can get boring fast. Now, I know that this is a revolutionary idea that's going to change the face of gaming forever, but allow me to clarify. Many single-player games nowadays have selectable difficulty options, usually something to the tune of easy, normal, hard, and why is the game cheating difficulty. As many players who have been gaming for a long time can likely attest to, it's no secret that it seems like games are getting easier. Maybe it's just our genius brains and our inhuman gaming reflexes being attuned to years of dodging things on a screen, but even without sweating too much, you can complete most normal difficulty games while minimally engaging with the core mechanics. Oftentimes, this can lead to unfulfilling gameplay experiences, especially when multiple games are played back to back and each one is as easy as the next. You might question if you can even have fun with games anymore, and then it all just spirals down from there. Well, maybe. Players and developers need to change their perspective on normal mode, and if potentially the moniker of normal itself is doing a disservice to a game's most interesting and engaging gameplay facets. While ultimately, the burden is on players to bite the bullet and try kicking their difficulty up a notch, maybe developers should change the perception around how difficulty settings are conveyed to players. This should be done with the goal to guide them not to the difficulty that they are comfortable with, but to the difficulty that will get them to engage with and immerse themselves in the world and gameplay mechanics placed before them. Of course, difficulty comes in so many shapes and sizes. Enemy AI, number of enemies, enemy placement, enemy variety, resource scarcity, and of course, the tried and true classic, the health and damage slider. Alright, let's get this out of the way early. While simple adjustments to health and damage are, in all essence, an artificial increase in difficulty, these simple attribute scaling difficulties can have a more profound impact on gameplay than I think most players give it credit for. On normal difficulty, assuming everyone deals similar damage, fighting 2 or 3 enemies at the same time can be relatively easy with just a half-hearted attempt at good positioning. But suddenly, multiply each enemy's health by 3 and their damage by 2, and now you're forced to account for so much more in an encounter just because each threat takes longer to remove, while each threat can take you down on their own if not played around properly. Are there range threats to account for? Which one does the most damage? Should you try rushing them down, or do they have something that prevents that? Is there any cover you can pull the melee enemies behind? Do you have any access to crowd control that can allow you to defer threats until later? The possibilities of how encounters should be approached opens up monumentally through simple scaling of enemy health and damage. It's less interesting on the surface than different AI, sure, but the increased intensity brought to every encounter is arguably far more interesting than an enemy who still does pitiful damage, now just trying to surround you more often. One of the greatest benefits of higher difficulty is, surprisingly, immersion in a game's world. Challenging encounters force you to consider everything about a game and the world it is trying to present. Games like Horizon Forbidden West, Destiny 2, or Skyrim keep trying to tell you just how threatening and dangerous the world is and how powerful the enemies you face are. And none of that comes across on normal or lower difficulties. Oftentimes, you're just left wondering how this world-ending threat couldn't have been solved with a few well-trained soldiers and standard-issue gear as you mow through enemies with ruthless efficiency. So, that brings us to the topic of Dark Souls and most From Software action RPGs, the unavoidable topics that have been at the center of the video game difficulty discussion for years. They are praised for not just having a higher difficulty than most games, but for flawlessly weaving it into the narrative of cycles, futility, and hopelessness. However, and this might be a hot take, I think that while there are so many other things to praise about the Souls series and other From Software games, the difficulty isn't as revolutionary as it might have seemed. In fact, that level of difficulty has been present for a long time in games, by simply starting a game and scrolling down to the harder difficulty options, then committing to play it like that all the way till the end. Of course, there's more to the context of Dark Souls' bold difficulty setting, such as it being fixed difficulty. Most fixed difficulty games at that time were games that would keep the difficulty to an almost insultingly easy level. On top of that, the normal modes of games with selectable difficulty would also not be too much harder than easy. All the while, hard mode and beyond were just waiting to provide the most engaging, immersive experience of a game that so many players wouldn't see unless they loved the game enough for a second playthrough. While there are some arguments to be made about how well video games are balanced around their higher difficulties, I hold to the thought that usually they're quite balanced for hard mode and beyond. Don't believe me? Look no further than the tale as old as video games themselves, the consumable problem. Every gamer knows this one. Oh, look at this damage boosting potion. I'll save it for a tough fight later. Oh, nice! A damage resistance potion? I'll save that one for an emergency. Wow, look at that! Resist fire potion. I'll save that for when I fight the fire boss. Then 20 hours later, you open your inventory to see 15 damage boost potions, 9 damage resist potions, and a whole bunch of money because you fought the fire boss with no issues and just sold all your fire resist potions. This is what harder difficulties are really balanced for. The reason that some damage scaling difficulties feel so off is that those buffs to enemy health and damage often invalidate a lot of simple, all-purpose, meta playstyle approaches to the game. Let's take, for example, the most well-known build in all of gaming, the Skyrim Sneak Archer. On nearly every difficulty, it's very simple. Grab a bow, grab some arrows, put your perks in only archery and sneak, one-shot everything in existence. But suddenly, you're up to legendary difficulty and, oh no, you don't kill in one shot anymore. Enemies now take a few more arrows to put down, and they start moving after you hit your first. Now when you're caught, you can't just tank all the arrows the enemies start to send back at you, and you might have to retreat? Unheard of. GG, game is unfair. Suddenly, you'll find yourself encouraged to actually bother with Skyrim's admittedly extremely overpowered crafting. You actually consider making and using all of the draught and filter style potions that boost your archery or your spell damage, while also using resistance potions to counter mages and dragons. Really, you'll take any defensive options you can get, like beelining your build straight to high magic resistance, if not outright immunity, to mitigate one of the strongest damage sources on higher difficulties. Heck, you might even start using your racial ability that you swore was going to be an integral part of your build more than once per playthrough, just to get the slight upper hand in a fight. Suddenly, being able to get enemies off of you as a Nord is extremely valuable, or being able to power attack continuously for a minute as a Red Guard can give you the DPS you need to win a fight. Now you're considering your gear, your build, your stats, your potions, your companions, and you're now immersed. You aren't playing the game passively, just doing whatever you want while the game hands you victories. Everything you did feels earned and achieved. And I think that is what really lies at the core of playing games on harder modes: achievement. Most games don't lock anything behind hard mode, except more, increasingly harder modes in Devil May Cry, you absolute masochists. So the only real incentive to play a game on a harder difficulty is just to say you can. Most people save higher difficulty options for repeat playthroughs of the game, but let's be real, how often do players have the time to go back and replay titles on harder difficulties with a release schedule that looks like this, and a backlog that looks like this? Oh my word! Sorry, maybe that's just me. Sometimes, to get to the heart of what really makes the gameplay fun, interesting, and enjoyable in a title, you have to be willing to take the chance to turn things up enough to challenge you to make the most of every single advantage the game throws your way. While this video is primarily inspired by my legendary Lightfall campaign solo run of Destiny 2, a game I had rarely played before this point and never finished any of the campaigns on, this was hell. My most recent first time hard mode playthrough is my very hard difficulty playthrough of Fallout 4. For years, I wanted so badly to enjoy the Fallout games, but every time I tried to get into them, they felt really bland and repetitive. Yes, I know, coming from the guy who still plays MapleStory after 15 years. Fallout 4 felt like it was loaded with items and systems that were just forgettable as long as you could go to the quest marker and shoot the bad guys with whatever guns you have. You could ignore most of the other mechanics like crafting, side quests, and even VATs to an extent. As long as you can hit any target with some semblance of aim, you are golden. Since starting my playthrough on very hard, however, everything is clicked into place. Crafting is essential for both the experience points and for the boost it can give to your weapons. Ammunition is no longer expendable, with every enemy taking more effort to put down. Conserving your shots and making a conscious decision of when to trust VAT's chances and when to trust your own aim is imperative. Not every fight is winnable. Sometimes going around another way is preferable to getting into a tangle. And now, that same wasteland that I used to find so boring and dull feels alive and dangerous. The desolation and isolation of it carry so much more atmosphere. Walking down a quiet road after barely scraping by a raider ambush while listening to Bingo Bango Bongo, I Don't Wanna Leave the Congo, Oh No 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 No, is so much more immersive because the whole theme of the game comes alive when it feels like a genuine struggle to survive. Also, I appreciate Dogmeat so much more when he holds aggro or pins down a target for a few easy headshots. He is the goodest boy. There's no problem with games being fixed on an easy difficulty or having selectable difficulties. Easy and normal modes make games more accessible to wider audiences who don't play games for the challenge as much as they prefer the beautiful worlds that games let you explore and the gripping narratives they can draw you into. However, for any players that have felt jaded by years of games that haven't challenged or engaged them, I cordially invite you the next time you face this difficulty selection screen to kick it up a notch above the difficulty you think you're comfortable with or that you think you should play on. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by how much more interesting and engaging you'll find the game's world, mechanics, and story, as well as learning just how much more you're capable of than you think you are. After all, the difficulty's called hard, not impossible. Hello everyone, and welcome to the end of the video. This one kinda took me a second. For those who are following my life updates on why it's been a while since my last upload, yes, I am recovering quite nicely. For everyone else, you can languish in ignorance for an eternity. Or just check my community tab, jeez. However, I do want to thank everyone who has stuck with the channel during this down period. It's been difficult for me, but I'm doing everything I can. I'm learning very quickly that I probably shouldn't make promises as to what the next video will bring or when it will be, but I can assure you that multiple topics are in the works. And if you're new here and stumbled across this video, I want to thank you for making it all the way to the end. If you want to see more videos of my insane ramblings about video game related topics, then here's a hard mode playthrough you can start right now. Try clicking that subscribe button and the notification bell to be notified of my next wild video topic. Come on, you can do it. Awesome. Melania has nothing on that boss battle. So if you like difficult games, then you may love to hear what I have to say about the focal point of every discussion on game difficulty here in my video about why I still play Dark Souls. And if you enjoyed my multiple references to Skyrim, here's a video of my favorite mod of all time and why you should download it before you start your 74th Sneak Archer playthrough. I know who you are. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, you all rock, and I will see you in the next video.